Wherever tales of mysterious creatures exist, every community carries its own folklore. Today, we journey to a small town in Tennessee that was once haunted by a spirit so vengeful that it became the very first ghost in United States history to be blamed for a death. The legend of the Bell Witch. Nestled on the outskirts of bustling Nashville lies the small town of Adams, Tennessee. Like thousands of other towns scattered across the United States, it is quiet, peaceful, and easily overlooked by travelers. Yet, if one peers more closely into its past, a darker story emerges. One of a haunting that began more than 2 centuries ago and is said to continue even to this very day. In the year 1804, John Bell, together with his wife Lucy Williams Bell and approximately 10 other families, embarked upon a grueling journey from Edgecombe, North Carolina, to Red River, Tennessee. Over the following years, the Bell family established themselves as prosperous farmers, thriving in their new home. Although widely respected and admired by the community, a scandal in the mid-1810s would cast a shadow of suspicion over John Bell's character. Among the families that had also moved from North Carolina was the Batts household. Following a tragic accident, their relationship with the Bells soured into lasting enmity. In 1816, Frederick Batts, the head of the family, was gravely injured while working his farm and would remain permanently impaired for the rest of his life. Unable to continue laboring, his family's situation became desperate, forcing him to sell parcels of land simply to survive. Some of that land was purchased by John Bell. This transaction ignited what would become an endless feud between the two families. Frederick's wife, Kate Batts, accused Bell of exploiting their misfortune, declaring that he had acquired the property for far less than its true worth. She swore that Bell and his family would one day pay dearly for his actions. The hostility only deepened when Bell later purchased a young enslaved girl from Frederick's brother, Benjamin. At the time, Bell felt the girl was too young to take with him, and so left her with her mother for a while longer. But when he eventually returned to collect her, Benjamin reneged on the agreement, insisting that she was worth more than the payment already received. After much heated dispute, Bell resold the girl back to Benjamin at a higher price, profiting yet again at the expense of the Batts family's hardship. By this point, John Bell believed the matter resolved and hoped that his dealings with the Batts were at an end. Unfortunately, nothing could have been further from the truth. Soon after the issue of the enslaved girl was settled, Benjamin Batts secretly filed a lawsuit against him for extortion. Bell had no knowledge of the suit and therefore failed to appear in court. In his absence, judgment was awarded to Benjamin. Word of the ruling swiftly reached Red River and was announced before the local church. Although Bell protested, the decision led to his excommunication. An act that many would later say opened the door for evil to enter his household. With her husband crippled, Kate Batts rose to prominence as the head of her family. Loud, coarse, and spiteful, she was widely disliked within the community. Because of certain questionable behaviors in church, many also believed Kate was engaged in witchcraft. Some even suspected that her husband's tragedy had been divine punishment for such wicked practices. Though none dared accuse her openly, most townsfolk avoided Kate whenever possible. She seemed far too intimidating for anyone to confront. In the year 1817, not long after his excommunication, John Bell was out hunting on his land when he encountered a creature unlike anything he had ever seen before. He later described it as having the body of a large dog, the head of a rabbit, and being covered entirely in black fur. Startled, he raised his musket and fired. But when he went to inspect the spot, the creature had vanished without leaving the faintest trace. Not wishing to alarm his family, Bell chose to keep the matter to himself. Yet soon after this encounter, strange phenomena began to plague the household. At night, the Bells would hear what sounded like stones being hurled against the exterior walls of their home. Despite checking repeatedly, they never once found an intruder. At first, Bell suspected the Batts family, but the disturbances quickly escalated to inside the house itself. Loud thuds, scratchings along the floors and walls, and noises like rats gnawing at the legs of the beds. These torments continued throughout the night, yet their origin was never discovered. The family's sleep was shattered. Though they tried their best to ignore it, the manifestations soon escalated into physical assaults. One night, Elizabeth Betsy Bell, the 14-year-old daughter, was roused from sleep by the now familiar noises. When she tried to investigate, she discovered that her hair had been twisted into tight knots around the bedpost. Unable to free herself, she was then struck repeatedly across the face by an unseen force. Hearing her terrified screams, the family rushed to her room and found Betsy's face covered in red welts, the shape of handprints clearly visible. Before long, the youngest son also began to show similar marks and bruises upon his legs and face. Not wishing to make the matter public and further damage the family's reputation, John Bell instructed everyone to remain silent. They turned to prayer, begging to be freed from the torment of whatever evil force haunted them, but their pleas went unanswered. In the weeks that followed, visual apparitions began to appear. The enslaved workers reported seeing strange birds and beasts, some of which they claimed could even speak. While walking through a field, Betsy herself witnessed the vision of a young girl in a green dress, suspended by her hands from a tree branch, who then vanished without a trace. The specters, the noises, and the physical assaults grew more violent with each passing day. Fear and sleepless nights soon became a burden far too great for the Bell family to endure on their own. John Bell turned to his friend and neighbor, James Johnston, for help. Johnston agreed, and soon he and his wife came to the Bell home, joining the family in prayer. One evening, Johnston raised his voice and demanded to know the name of the entity. After several nights of unsuccessful attempts to drive it away, Johnston advised Bell to seek the support of the wider community, and Bell reluctantly agreed. News of the haunted house spread faster than anyone could have imagined. People from nearby settlements, and even from far afield, traveled to the Bell residence in hopes of witnessing the strange phenomena. The entity, once quiet, now made no effort to conceal its presence. It displayed a particular malice toward John Bell. Eventually, word reached General Andrew Jackson, who would later become President of the United States. Jackson resolved to bring a small group of soldiers with him to the Bell farm, where they intended to camp for several days. One of the men boasted that he had brought along silver bullets and declared his intention to use them to kill the witch. Yet as the party drew close to the Bell property, the wheels of their wagon suddenly locked, refusing to move despite the combined efforts of soldiers and horses alike. Jackson is said to have apologized for the arrogance of his man, and at once the wheels turned freely again, allowing the group to arrive without further difficulty. Although they had planned to stay several nights, Jackson's company departed after only one. While no official records survive, it was later said that Jackson remarked, "I would rather face the entire British Army than spend another night at the Bell House." 1. Not all members of the Bell family were tormented by the so-called Bell Witch, however. Lucy Bell, John's wife, received quite the opposite treatment. In the year 1820, she was diagnosed with a severe case of pleurisy, and many doubted she would survive. As Lucy lay bedridden, the Bell Witch was said to sing soothing hymns by her side and even left hazelnuts and grapes upon her bed, appearing to conjure them from thin air. Gradually, Lucy's condition improved until she made a full recovery. As Lucy's health grew stronger, John Bell's declined with alarming speed. On the morning of December the 20th, 1820, he was found dead in his bed. A strange, pungent odor emanated from his mouth, and a vial of cloudy liquid was discovered nearby, giving off the same acrid scent. Rumors quickly spread as to who had poisoned him, and when some whispered that Lucy herself might have been responsible, the disembodied voice of Kate was heard declaring, "Last night I fixed his medicine and gave him a heavy dose. He will never rise from that bed again." For the first time in United States history, a documented death was attributed to a supernatural entity. Nor did it end there. Kate was said to have made an appearance at John Bell's funeral. During the burial service, she mocked him, jeering and singing bawdy drinking songs to torment his grieving family and friends. After the service, the disturbances gradually diminished. It seemed Kate had accomplished her purpose, and the family believed she was gone for good. That was until the spring of 1821, when Betsy Bell received a marriage proposal from a well-respected young man named Joshua Gardner. Once again, Betsy saw the vision of the girl in the tree, who warned her not to wed this man before vanishing as suddenly as she had appeared. Terrified of inviting the Bell Witch's return, Betsy broke off the engagement. So, how are we to view this story? Given the sparse record-keeping of that era, we will never truly know the full truth of the events that are said to have taken place. It must be remembered that most people of the time could neither read nor write, and so the majority of the accounts were passed down orally for many years before ever being committed to paper. It is difficult, therefore, to determine how many details were embellished or even entirely invented before they were finally recorded. The Bell Witch haunting endured for many years, producing far more tales and incidents than we can recount here. Yet it remains entirely possible that much of the story was constructed as a means of concealing the murder of John Bell. It is worth noting that Lucy Bell, John's wife, was the younger sister of John Williams Jr., who was himself the father of Kate Williams Batts. Could Bell's death have been the result of a conspiracy between Kate and Lucy? This would certainly explain why Lucy escaped the witch's torment. But then, what possible gain could Lucy have derived from subjecting her own children to such terror? Records show that Kate Batts was still alive in the census of 1830, and so it could not have been her ghost at the heart of these incidents. Another figure often mentioned is Richard Powell, the man who would later become Betsy's husband. Powell was highly educated and may have been capable of producing strange occurrences that the people of that era could not easily comprehend, thereby creating mass hysteria. He had long harbored affection for Betsy, even while still married to his wife Esther, who died in 1821, the very same year that Joshua Gardner had proposed to Betsy. Could Powell have orchestrated these events as a way of drawing closer to her? It seems unlikely, yet not beyond all possibility. On the other hand, there are those who believe that the entire saga was genuine, that Kate Batts had conjured a spirit or demon to avenge the perceived injustices against her family. Even today, unexplained events are said to occur in the region. Local residents, including descendants of the Bell family, have spoken of strange experiences that defy simple explanation. As a young boy, Bob Bell recalled an incident involving his grandmother. In a state of panic, she telephoned Bob's father, begging him to come and investigate the house for intruders. When they arrived, they found nothing amiss until they entered the kitchen. The cabinet that housed the family's china, which had always been kept locked, now stood open, and every dish and plate lay scattered across the floor. Strangely, not a single piece had been chipped or broken. A more recent occurrence involved Tim Henson, a local historian and curator at the town's museum. According to Henson, visitors to the Bell property are frequently warned not to remove anything from the site. He recounted the story of one man who took a stone from a nearby cave. Within the space of 3 days, the man lost his wife, his job, and his home. It is, of course, entirely possible that these tragedies would have happened regardless, and that the taking of the stone was mere coincidence. But then again, who can say for certain? So, should you ever find yourself in Red River and take the time to speak with the townsfolk, you may not leave as a believer, but it is to be hoped that you will be wise enough to give the old Bell property the respect it so rightly deserves. And that is the story for today. Thank you for watching until the very end. If you enjoy videos like this, be sure to subscribe to the channel so that you receive a notification each time we release a new one.